You're live.
Alright, so my phone is being retarded, so let me know if you could hear.
No one's here
Um,
yet.
yeah, but let me know if you could hear when you guys log on. But anyways, last week I messed up. I couldn't upload on Saturday because I got called into teaching for like 3 days, and there was an emergency at the gym, so I had to go and teach. And I didn't have the time to upload and to edit the video to upload it. So this week I said I was gonna upload the video, part one of the vlog series that when we went to ZWF that was uploaded yesterday, and today I'm doing a YouTube live to talk about grouping your crested geckos, whether you're looking to breed or not, and what to look out for when if it's bullying or if they're doing good, if they're not doing good, everything that you're gonna need to know.
They said they can hear, so.
Awesome. I'm glad you guys could hear now. Anyways, so yesterday we set up a whole bunch of different groups, new breeding groups. We paired up new geckos, and every time that we pair up new geckos, we gotta, for the first couple of days, we gotta check on them, make sure that they're doing good, that none of them are getting bullied or so. So I figured this would make a good, video, and you guys can ask me your questions, and I can answer them right away. So let's start with this first. If you're gonna pair up a group of geckos, whether it's one gecko with another gecko, a pair, or a group of 3 or 4 animals, make sure that it's in a neutral cage. So put new furniture. So check this out. Over here we have some new plants. I use a lot of this stuff. I use is because it's cost effective, but the geckos, it covers all the geckos' basic needs. This brown paper, if you guys have seen my videos before, I use it because it's extra visual barriers and foliage, and they like to hide in between it. And it also collects some water, so it could be used as basically leaves. They'll lick the water off of that too. Now I have this black tube here that they could go underneath, and they could go inside and hide in there if they want to. I have a PVC pipe here. It's like it would serve as a branch. And of course some fake plants. Later on I'm going to add a egg laying container here so the female could go lay her eggs when she needs to. And this is actually an enclosure I used for a pair. This guy is in here with another female, and this is the size of this is a 58 quart. I will put up to 4 geckos in here with no problem. Okay, so obviously, if you're keeping the crested geckos, you don't want to do more than 1 male. You can see this is a male right here. You want to do 1 male to 1 or up to 3 females in an enclosure like this, and they will be fine. Now, some of the things that you want to look out for if you're breeding or if you're just grouping your geckos is you want to make sure that, first of all, if there's a little bit of biting and obviously the breeding can be a little rough, so that's how a male is going to bite the female and she might bite back, but it's not going to be anything too crazy. It's going to be more of like little nibs. But if you do see that your gecko is having shedding problems, obviously if you're sure that you don't have any humidity issues, but the gecko's still like shedding in a weird way. I see that a lot of times geckos that are getting bullied have shed issues. I don't know why. Maybe because of the stress or something, but I do see that when it is time to shed, some of those tend to have shed issues. They'll shed in pieces, and usually they shed, in one piece, and they eat it all that same night. Another thing to look out for is the weight. If you're gonna house your geckos in groups like this, you should have a scale, like a gram scale, and weigh your geckos maybe on a weekly basis. Make sure that none of them are dropping too much weight, too fast. If they drop 2 or 3 grams here and there in the first week or so, it's okay, because sometimes they will stop eating because they're just getting used to their new environment, but then they should get back up until they're average weight. So watch the weight, watch them that they're not shedding. A lot of them will have bite marks on the neck. Now they're not as visible, but if you see some little bite marks on the neck, that's normal breeding behavior. A lot of geckos do tend to, have those little marks or missing crests sometimes. Even sometimes a male will bite the girl on the feet or on the body just to try to get on top of her. But that's normal behavior. Now, if you're housing them in groups, you got to make sure you have a lot of visual barriers. What do I mean by visual barriers? So this, a lot of stuff that they could get away from each other. You don't want the geckos to be in an open area where they're always forced to deal with each other. If they want to, get their time separated, if they want to be by themselves, they could just go to another hiding spot and chill there. That's what is going to basically help your geckos get along. Now, obviously, you want to provide enough food. If you don't have enough food in there, then the geckos are going to start to they're going to be more prone to fighting. Now, if you see a gecko chasing another one, sometimes if it's like two females, for example, that's not breeding behavior. If you see if you see two females chasing after each other, sometimes it could just be a way of saying, okay, they're showing who's the boss in that cage, and that's not necessarily bad all the time. But if it gets out of hand, that's why I tell you guys, you gotta weigh the geckos, you gotta make sure they're not dropping weight, and you gotta provide enough food. If they're chasing each other and you see it's getting a little violent, then you might want to separate the female. Okay, obviously you don't want any of the geckos getting hurt. Now, if you want perfect animals, house them by themselves. Sometimes, like I said, geckos will get bit on the crests, especially the females. They'll lose some crests. They'll, maybe they'll drop their tail while breeding. So some of that is normal behavior, but like I said, if you're looking to have perfect animals, then you probably don't want to breed. Any questions so far?
Alright, so to address some comments, first, Chad Crowell says, "What's up?"
What's up, Chad?
Yvonne asked, "Hi, is inbreeding okay for Cresteds? Like father and daughter?"
Yeah. So inbreeding is technically, yes, it's okay if you know what you're doing. So, for example, all of these Moors we got by, inbreeding at one point or another. Hate to break it to you. With crested geckos or any other reptiles, pretty much, you have to inbreed, especially with recessive Moors, because a recessive morph, if it's the first of its kind, let's take the Axanthics, for example. The first Axanthic pops out. So how do we know what kind of mutation is it? Is it a co-dominant? Is it a recessive? Is it a dominant? So how do we know? We got to breed it back to the dad or the mom or whatever, and that's how we're going to figure it out. And you also breed it to unrelated animals. So if it's a co-dominant, like the lily white, for example, if you breed the lily white to an unrelated animal, you're still going to produce lily white babies. But if you breed an Axanthic gecko to an unrelated gecko, you're not going to get any visual Axanthics, but you will get het Axanthics. What that means is if you put two Axanthics together, or two het Axanthics together, you will produce visual Axanthics. So they won't look Axanthic on the outside, the het, but in the inside, in the genetics, it carries it. So if you put two that are het Axanthic together, you'll produce some that are visually Axanthic. Okay? Ask me another question. I'm going to get another box here.
Alright, do you have a Corlophus saracinorum?
Yes, I do. I actually just got some. So those are, for those of you guys that are not familiar with those are the slender New Caledonian geckos. I'll show you one in a minute, but they're basically another really cool New Caledonian gecko that is just as easy to keep, and they're not as popular. They're actually a little rare in the hobby, and I've never shown one on YouTube before because I didn't have one before, but I will show you guys today, so you guys can get a little sneak peek of what I got. Okay, this is one of the groups for the lily whites. This is one of those new lily white males that I got from my past video that I did. He's set up in breeding, and I saw him lock up with a female yesterday, so we should be getting eggs pretty soon. But here's the male. This is the male that I got. That, if you guys remember that vlog when I went to FedEx and I picked up the lily whites, this is one of the males. The other one's still a little smaller, so I didn't want to breed them yet. And these are some of the females that I kept, that I put him with. Here's a quad stripe whiteout female. Here's a quad stripe whiteout female. You see she's a quad stripe. Full pinstripe. This is actually the female I saw him lock up with yesterday, an extreme Harlequin pinstripe female. You see she has a lot of creams and whites. Obviously some of these are not fired up because it's just the middle of the day right now. But as you can see, this girl was actually hiding in between this paper here. And I just kind of like crumble it and make it. And this is so firm that they could like climb on this and it's not going to, you know, bend down or anything. That's a good paper. I think I only had him. Yeah, I think I only have him in there with 2 girls right now. Because he's still a little small and I didn't want him to get bullied or anything. So this is another way I keep them. You know, with egg crates, this is easy because it's easy to clean and it gives them a lot of stuff to climb on, you know. There's a lot of here to climb on. I guess on some fake plants. There's some hides in the bottom there. Here, I'll pick this up so you guys can see. You see, we use these egg carton tops as the hides. They could go in there and hide if they want, but like I said, they tend to hide in these in this crumbled up paper because they like to cram themselves in tiny spots.
716 Royals asked if you bought that brown paper or if you made it.
I don't know how to make paper. But well actually I get that paper from a business that's local to here. But I'm sure you could buy it like at a restaurant depot. So let me show you that slender prehensile tailed gecko now from New Caledonia. Those are pretty cool as well.
Kaylee, I think, asks, what cage besides Exoterrace do you recommend?
Well, if you know what you're doing, the best cage really is like one of these plastic containers. I know it's not pretty, but these hold in the humidity the best. Now, if let's say you want something that looks nice, kind of like this, you could set up a Zoomed or an Exoterra or something like that. Okay. Oh, by the way, let me show you my Nietzsche that I got at Tinley. He is huge. Actually, no, this is not the one I got from Tinley, but I'll still show you him.
Ben asks, how often do you need to pair your geckos up?
I leave them together all year unless I'm going to switch up the pairings. He's not fired up. He's really beautiful. A Nuana male that he'll be meeting his Nuana female maybe in about 2 years or so. But this is not the one I got in Tinley. I was mistaken. I'll show you that one in a second. So he's in here.
716 Royals asks, so when they're not breeding and you're giving them their 4-month off, what size tub should they be in as a single?
As a single, I keep them in these type of tubs. Hold on. Okay, so let me show you. This is the Nuana female. If you guys remember, I got her. Ouch. I got her when she was maybe like half this size. They grow so fast. But this is the Nuana I got from Robbie Hamper over there at her nails are like going right into my dig right into my nail. But yeah, she's beautiful. So maybe in 2 years she'll be breeding. Look at those crisp white, and this is a pure Nuana lichianis. Okay. So yeah, I keep the single adults in these size tubs. These are probably like 27 quarts. Maybe 27 quart, yeah. Okay, let me show you. Let's move this real quick.
Julia said, I just got my Cresteds yesterday. Is it normal for them to still be fired up? They're a white patternless and fired up a creamy brown.
Yeah, it's normal. It's normal. They'll stay fired up, especially if the humidity's high or something. So this is a Coryllepis saracenorum. I hope I didn't butcher that. But basically, this is a prehensile-tailed, slender New Caledonian gecko. These guys are just as easy to take care of as the crested geckos and all the New Caledonian geckos. And they're absolutely gorgeous. You can see this little white collar. Not all of them have this white collar and the white dots, but these are usually the most popular, and these are the ones I'm getting into. Okay, I got 'em. Right there. Any more questions?
All right.
Let's answer a couple more.
Okay.
Yeah, these are really cool.
What would you put in a 36 by 18 by 18 Exoterra?
A 36 by 18 by 18. Well, depends. Like what? Like a gecko or what?
Okay.
I would put. Let's see. I would put a lychee in there. You could put a lychee in there.
Is it okay to house a male with 2 females together whole year if he is really calm, not breed aggressive at all?
Yes, absolutely. All the bigger breeders. I don't consider myself a big breeder. This is my room, my gecko room. There's people with. This is about 250 square feet. There's people that have like 2,000 square feet or 5,000 square feet. So, but the bigger breeders, which I learned a lot from them, they house their geckos together all year round because they naturally slow down and they naturally stop laying. Obviously, you want to give them a cooling period, but before I used to think you would have to separate the males, but I've listened to some of the bigger breeders and kept them together all year round and haven't had an issue. Every now and then though, there will be a female that will slow down, that will get really thin, kind of like this one here. I had to separate her because she got very thin, so I'm just kind of like trying to get her back up to health. As you can see, this tail is super thin. Her hip bones are popping out because she was cranking out so many eggs. So I just decided, you know what, she definitely needs to be separated and give her some tender loving care. Basically, just have her own food dish by herself, and then in a couple months she'll be back to normal.
Ever since spring, Alex asked, ever since spring began, my gargoyle started eating more. He is 4 grams. I am feeding him green and red Pangea. How fast can he get to 10 grams?
So I mean, every gecko grows differently, but I don't recommend you to go, okay, let's see how fast we can grow this thing, because sometimes if it grows too fast, the bones can't keep up with the calcium. Like the calcium intake is not going to be enough to keep up with the bone growth, and things like MBD can happen and all that stuff. So I recommend to, feed them normal, feed them lots of calcium dusted insects. Obviously, the Rapashi or the Pangea diet, and just let them grow on its own. As long as the temperature, as long as the husbandry is right, there's not going to be any issues. One more thing, if you're growing these geckos out, like really for breeding, for example, if you're going to grow them out to breed, let them take their time into growing. Don't get too eager to breed them, because think about it. These are animals that will live for, 15 or 20 years. You don't want them to be stunted if you breed them too soon. You know what I mean? So just take your time with that. There's no rush.
Kristen asked, what do you think the ideal breeding weight would be for a male crested?
For a male crested geckos, the males I don't care too much about because their body isn't going to go through the labor of producing the eggs. So the males could be as low as 30, 35 grams, and they'll still grow to their full size eventually. I just prefer to pair them up when they look like they could take the female though. The female crested gecko, I want to pair them up when they're at least 45 grams. 40 grams is okay too, but I prefer to pair them at 45.
Ben asked, do your gargoyles take feeder insects?
Some of them do, some of them don't. So, for example, a couple days ago, I think this was yesterday, I posted the picture on Instagram about a gargoyle gecko eating a baby crested gecko that was already dead. Sometimes they get stillborns that they can't hatch out of the egg and they die in the egg. So I open the egg and I feed the dead baby to the gargoyle geckos, because gargoyle geckos are gecko eaters. If you look closely at their teeth, they're very serrated, unlike the crested gecko. So there's been a lot of studies done, and we have found out that gargoyle geckos in the wild eat a lot of like smaller species of geckos, kind of like the giant geckos. So a lot of them are very iffy about the insects. Some of them love insects, some of them don't. Now, if they don't eat insects, try out that trick that I had on my other YouTube video that was like how to get your gecko to eat insects. Basically, you crush the head and put it towards the gecko's mouth. If you haven't seen that video, go check that out. But if they're not eating insects, you could try adding some rapashi grub pie to their diet every like once or twice a week.
Trent asked if you can show your cave geckos.
I'm actually sold out of cave geckos. I don't have any more.
Tom Burton asked, is a 30-gallon aquarium with a screen top fine to use?
A 30-gallon aquarium with a screen top for what? But yeah, you could use an aquarium. You could use. Look, guys, I have 10-gallon tanks. I have this kind of enclosures. I have these kind of enclosures. I have so many kinds of enclosures. People doesn't care the shape of the enclosure or how pretty it is to you. They care about their basic requirements being met. The food, the hiding spots, feeling safe. That's what they care about.
Elena asks, can I breed a female crested to a male crested if the female hasn't seen a crested gecko in 2 years?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
As long as they're breeding size, obviously.
Dirt Bike Adventures asks, when I go to pick up some of my geckos, they squeak and sound really scared, so I put them down. Should I just pick them up and ignore the noises?
So how big are they? If they're babies, I don't recommend handling them too much. Wait until they're bigger juveniles. But yeah, they're gonna be scared at first. But you just gotta pick them up. If you're finicky too much with them, they're gonna get more scared. So if you're gonna go pick them up, just grab them and be calm and hand walk them. That's gonna get them to calm down. If you're finicky and you're scared and you're nervous, that translates to the gecko and they feel that and then they're gonna be even more crazy.
Rick Culp asked, what about using protein powder if you're not feeding bugs? Mix it with Pangea.
I would. I don't recommend that. I've never done that. Obviously, some of these diets already have like whey protein and stuff like that, but I do not recommend that, especially if you don't know what you're doing. Don't do that.
Ams Reptiles asked, I just rescued a box turtle. Do you have any tips? Please help.
Box turtles. I mean, there's so many different kinds of box turtles, but you want to keep a little bit higher humidity. You want to house them in like 80 to 90 degree weather. But I honestly don't know much about them. I just know that you could find some here in Florida. So that's why I'm telling you that.
Alright, Kristen asks, what would happen if you bred a red-crested gecko with no pattern to a lavender with lots of pattern? Would half the babies come out with no pattern?
So you'll get some that are patterned with red. You'll get some that are lavender with pattern, and you'll get some that are red without pattern.
Alright. Mace Dingle, or I don't know if that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
When pairing a male to a female, are there any morphs you shouldn't breed together?
No, not really. You shouldn't breed two lily whites together, but yeah, not really. I mean, it just depends on your taste, like personally, I want to refine the traits. I want to make the pinstripes better. So I'm not going to make the pinstripes better if I'm breeding a pinstripe to a buckskin or like a patternist, So I try to keep them together just because I want to make them better and get to the next level. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't breed this to that, because sometimes breeding random things together can pop out something cool. So you could definitely try that if you want.
Yvonne said, I have 5 cresteds and only one of them eats superworms. Is there any chance I can get all of them to eat superworms? The other ones lick the worms but don't want to eat them.
No, I mean they don't have to eat superworms. Crickets are a little bit better, honestly. I wouldn't feed superworms too often. And you gotta also be careful because the superworms can turn around and bite the eyes or something like that. But I mean, every now and then it's okay. But I would rather you feed insects like crickets or maybe roaches. But if they don't eat superworms, that's okay.
Do you like long-tailed grass lizards?
Yes, I was at Underground Reptiles the other day and they had a bunch. But yeah, I like them. They're pretty cool. They're
Um,
very tame too. It's like you expect it to be fast like an anole, but you could just go in there and just pick it up. The grass lizards.
Alex said my 4 gram gargoyle is really small. Is there a big difference in when they're an adult? Also, what weight classifies baby, juvenile, adult, etc.?
Um, so I would say that, well, yeah. So yours weighs 4 grams. An adult will weigh a gargoyle gecko maybe like 45, 50 grams, 55 grams. Now, I guess I mean there's no like set um, table that tells you exactly what this is a baby, this is an adult, this is a subadult. But I would say maybe like 1 to 10 grams is a baby, 10 to 20 grams is a juvenile, 20 to 30 is a subadult, 40 and up is an adult.
Elena asks, what if my female freaks out when the male goes in?
That's normal. Sometimes they'll freak out, but you gotta. It's traumatizing for a female cat. Okay, let me show you one more thing. Let me show you one more thing. My gargoyles here. So everybody always says they have problems with their gargoyle geckos being aggressive towards each other. This is how I keep the gargoyle geckos. Again, it comes back to the what I was saying earlier, visual barriers, right? So if they have lots of spaces to go away from each other, they don't tend to bother each other, because if they do, they'll just kind of run away and hide. So it almost looks cluttered in here because that's how they like it. That's how they stay pretty healthy. That's how they don't bother each other. So when I keep the gargoyles together for breeding, I like to put a lot of, fake plants in here, brown paper. I put 2 lay boxes. There's 2 females in here, so I'll put 2 lay boxes just in case one is laying in one, and then she doesn't want to be bothered. She could go to the other one or so. And this is Dracula, by the way, and this is one of our red stripe gargoyle gecko groups. So this is Dracula. This is a red blotched and striped female. And then Velvet is somewhere in here. I don't know where the hell she is. But I don't know. Oh, she's right here. What's up, girl? Oh, she's about to shed. But you can see those thick. You see how thick her red stripes are? And she's about to shed. She's looking so pale right now. So yeah. There's a couple little tips on how to group your geckos together. Just a little recap. Watch the geckos. Watch their weight over a couple days or weeks. Make sure that they're not dropping too much. Look at the eyes. If the eyes are getting sunk in, that means they're a little dehydrated. They could be getting bullied, and sometimes they'll stop eating or drinking if that's the case. So look at their eyes. Look at their weight. Make sure that they're shedding properly. I see that a lot of times. Geckos that are getting bullied will shed in different pieces. And I never have shedding problems with crested geckos or gargoyle geckos when they're adults. Only if they're getting bullied. But the only problems I've ever had with shedding problems because of humidity is when they're babies. So if your crested gecko or a gargoyle gecko is getting bullied and it's an adult, it might have shedding problems. I don't know the reason behind it. It doesn't make sense to me, but that's just an observation I've made. Again, lots of visual barriers to prevent kind of bullying. Lots of food. Crickets. When you're feeding crickets, that's also good. And that's about it. So I'm going to wrap this up. If you guys have any other questions that really need answering, feel free to email me or message me on Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. You guys know the deal. I'm always here for you guys. I'm the only breeder that always interacts with you guys, and you guys know that. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.